The developer of a PlayStation 1 emulator has forbidden the creation of Arch Linux packages of his software. This is a real thing that's happening, and it's kind of crazy. Let me. I'm going to walk you through all of this really quickly. I just posted this up on X a few minutes ago, and I want to read some of this to you because it's crazy, and it gets into Wayland and threatening the removal of Linux support, and also the fact that no one can really actually fork this thing. It's a kind of a crazy story, and I'm going to ask you to listen to all the details before making up your mind on what you think about this, because this is kind of wild. All right, so the developer of a PlayStation emulator known as DuckStation has specifically blocked packages from being made for Arch Linux, specifically Arch Linux. The reason? He is fed up with Arch users who use broken packages and keep complaining to me instead of their packager. Here, I'm just going to read his whole statement here. This is from, he published this, earlier today. Quote, I originally provided this an alternative to the broken AUR packages. However, it seems that Arch users would rather use broken packages and keep complaining to me instead of their packager. I specifically forbid packages for DuckStation, and there's no way to request removal of these packages without handing my details over to a distribution I want nothing to do with. So this is step one. Next step will be removing Linux support entirely because I'm sick of the headaches and hacks for an operating system that only comprises 2% of the user base, and I don't even use myself. But I'm hoping the Linux community will be reasonable because as someone giving up my free time and not being compensated in any way, I shouldn't have to deal with this. Just grep the source for Wayland and you'll see what I mean. Okay. All right. So now here's the details. So this DuckStation emulator provides an app image for Linux users on his website, on his GitHub page, right? And he's tired of trying to support people who build packages for distributions that are kind of unofficial and just causing all sorts of headaches for him, and he hates having to support it. So he wants to point people to the app image. But then Arch users use the Arch user repository to have packages that people are installing, and it's driving this guy crazy, right? So what he did is he specifically changed the build script there to do a check if the environment equals Arch Linux, message fatal error unsupported environment. So basically he's just banning packages being made for Arch Linux entirely. Now, what specifically headaches is he tired of just in general on Linux and are causing him to threaten the possibility of getting rid of Linux support entirely? He says, quote, just grep the source for Wayland and you'll see what I mean. So I did, and yeah, Wayland, there's Wayland hacks all over the place to get this to work with Wayland because Wayland problems. So now a lot of you might be looking at this and going, okay, fine. I've got a screenshot for you. He provides Linux app image support, app images for x64, ARM32, and ARM64. All right. So now you might say to yourself, well, why don't we fork it, right? Why don't we fork it? Well, you can't really just fork this thing. And this is actually where it gets a little more interesting, I think. The software's current source code, and it's been this way for, I think, about a year now, is licensed under the Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial Non-Derivatives 4.0 International License. It's a very big, long name for a license, but what that version of the Creative Commons, what it means is that you cannot create a commercial thing out of it, and you cannot make a derivative of it, meaning a fork. where you actually distribute it to someone else, right? So you can't build it and distribute it yourself. You can't fork it and distribute that fork yourself, either in code or compiled forms, without the express permission of the copyright holder, in this case, the developer. So you cannot fork this thing. It's fascinating. I mean, it's open source in that the source is open. You can go grab the source code. It's all up there on GitHub. It's available to you. But I think much earlier versions were released under the GPL. The new versions are all under this Creative Commons non-derivative license. So you can't really fork it. So if this developer says, no, you know what, Linux users, you don't get a build anymore because you made things hard for me, so I'm not giving you a build. Well, yeah, that's his right. I mean, that's how he licensed it. That's what we got to roll with. And I kind of understand where he's coming from. I mean, I'm of two camps. I'm of two minds about all this. The first is that I'm not a huge fan of making something open source that cannot ever be forked. like to me, like what's the point if it cannot ever be forked, right? Under the Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial Non-Derivatives 4.0 license, it's extremely restrictive, and I more power to him. If that's how he wants to license it, I say God bless him. That's what he gets to do, right? It's his work. He gets to license it that way. However, if you're going to make something open source that can't be forked without like your express permission and basically like dual licensing it, that seems kind of pointless to me. That seems a bit silly to me. However, I kind of get where he's coming from in that he's not a Linux developer, right? I get it. So he's like a Windows or Mac guy. Fine. He's not a Linux guy. And he feels like he has to spend an inordinate amount of time supporting Linux for two key reasons. And the two things that were causing him headaches, I kind of got to agree, they are headaches. The first is Wayland in general. The number of people I've seen who have had to deal with Wayland headaches is innumerable. Just the other day I was posting about and commenting on the fact that the developer of X Screensaver was just banging his head against the wall trying to get X Screensaver working under Wayland, right? So you could have good screensavers under Wayland. Wayland just makes it really hard to do a lot of certain functionality. And I'm not saying to emulate the exact way that, say, an X server works. It really does make it hard to do certain things. And that's by design, right? That's not even necessarily a knock on the design of Wayland. That is how it is designed. It's designed for certain security purposes and blah, 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 blah. And sandboxing of things, yada, yada, yada. It's just designed that way. And so Wayland is just, it causes headaches for people who expect a computer to work the way that computers have worked for a very, very long time. It causes problems, especially when you get into gaming and screensavers and desktop capturing and so many things. And I know I've said a couple of things just now that a whole bunch of Wayland apologists will start already screaming at me about, but those are issues. There are some workarounds for them, and you have to include a great number of kind of hackneyed workarounds to make them work, but they really are issues, just pure technical issues. And the second thing that this developer points out, and it is a real issue, is difficult and annoying packages for a project, right? And I do see this both ways, and I'll describe it both here in a second, but I see where he's coming from, perhaps most of all, because if he builds a piece of software And other people come along in an unofficial capacity and package it for various, say, Linux distributions or BSD distributions and the like. And those packages are broken in some way, like they aren't very well tested. They're using maybe a wrong version of a library, something. And that ends up causing problems for people using the software. They're going to usually blame the developer of the software, even though it was the packagers that caused the issue. This happens all the time. I've worked on a number of Linux distributions over the years at various levels, and invariably, no matter how horribly a package maintainer screws something up, the person who gets blamed is either the developer of the piece of software that got packaged, even if he had nothing to do with the packaging of it, or the developers of the Linux distribution itself, who also, in many cases, never had anything to do with the packaging of it. And this is really strongly the case with Arch Linux. I like Arch a great deal. I have a lot of fondness for Arch and Arch-based distributions. They're very cool. But because of the very nature of the Arch user repository, what happens is many people put things up there in the AUR, in the Arch user repository, that are not necessarily very well tested or very well packaged. Sometimes they are, sometimes they're not. The inevitable bugs that occur based on them get blamed on either the software, whether it's a web browser, text editor, game, what have you, or Arch itself. And neither Arch nor the software developer had any control over the screwed up packaging. And so this guy who makes this PlayStation emulator is like, people are having problems with my PlayStation emulator because people didn't use the package I provide in the form of that app image, which I like app images for that very reason. It's great for distributing this stuff. But instead, they use the AUR packages. So he specifically is just like, I'm banning Arch packages. I'm just banning Arch Linux packages forever. And if you keep messing around with me, we're moving to step 2. And step 2 is no more Linux builds at all. I'm just going to strip it out. And by the way, I have it licensed in such a way where y'all can't fork it. I'm flipping the tables over and going home. I mean, it's an extreme reaction, but I kind of understand it. I do. I don't necessarily disagree with him on any of that. Now, for me personally, I don't think I'd ditch Linux support for it. But the problems that he points out, those two issues, the packaging issue and the Wayland problems, those are very real problems. I mean, those are very real problems. And for me, I see solutions being, well, let's just focus on getting people to use things like app images more often for third-party software like this. Just standardize on that, man. Because as for all the issues that app images have, and they do have some issues, they do provide a really consistent way to distribute software in binary form among multiple Linux distributions. Because an app image is an ISO file, right? A .iso file that when it auto mounts, it auto runs, and inside that, it basically creates its own little own little environment where it has all the libraries inside that ISO file and everything for it to need. And so you can run the same .app image file across a wide number of Linux distributions. For example, I think Kdenlive Live and OpenShot and a bunch of other applications out there ship as app images. I think that does OBS Studio. I think it might as well. But a whole bunch of them ship as app images, and so they run great on Ubuntu or Fedora or Arch or Gentoo. You can get it up and running. App images great on all these different platforms. And so I think that's a great solution, and that's the solution that this DuckStation developer recommends. But people just aren't taking him up on that. They're building AUR packages anyway. Anyway, I find this interesting, and so it's causing a bit of a commotion. People are getting into a ruckus about him basically saying, "Fine, I'm gonna remove Linux support entirely if y'all keep this this up. I'm sick of the headaches and the hacks. And he's not wrong. There are a lot of headaches and a lot of hacks, especially if you have to support Wayland. It just is the case. I'm not saying that we need to toss Wayland into a dumpster fire, but what I'm saying is we need to toss Wayland into a dumpster fire. Thank you to the Lunduke Journal subscribers for making it possible to do the work that I do. Go to lunduke.com. Click on some links. They're the best links on the whole internet over there at lunduke.com. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet. You know you want to subscribe. You love subscribing. In fact, through the end of the day on August 1st, which is this coming Friday, you can get 50% off all subscriptions. But if you miss that, if you're watching or listening to this after August 1st, just grab something at regular price. It's great. It's a bargain at twice the price. And thank you to everyone who makes the Lunduke Journal possible. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, nerds and nerdettes across the inner tubes, I do declare, end broadcast.